All right, let's talk about some of the secrets to nailing your next job interview. What's up, everybody? This is your boy Tech G back with another video. And in this video, we're going to talk about some of the secrets to nailing your next job interview. And this information is actually going to be coming to you from an actual job recruiter who says that these are some of the things that you should keep in the front of your mind, not the back, but the front, in the event that you want to walk away successful from your next job interview. So let's check this out. All right, the article says, recruiter reveals the secret to nailing your next job interview. Hiring expert says companies are not looking for the best candidate, but rather people who are the least risky. And she shares tips for proving you're the safest choice. So according to this hiring manager, they want the least risky and not necessarily the best candidate. Now that could be a little tricky situation because we all want to be the best candidate, but in this IT thing, sometimes being the best candidate can pose the most risk. It says a recruiter has said that companies don't hire the best candidates for a job, claiming that interviews are actually all about proving you are the person with the least amount of risk instead of how qualified you are for the position. Runa Zhang, that's how you say her last name, is a hiring manager based in the US, often shares various tips and tricks for scoring a new position and giving the best answers in job interviews to TikTok, where she has racked up more than 11,000 followers. However, she left the internet stunned when she admitted that recruiters often don't look for the most qualified employees, but instead the people who they believe will last the longest. So this is the woman that's giving all these tips right here.
Did you really think that big companies try to hire the best, most qualified candidates? Well, they don't, and I can let you know why. As a hiring manager, they don't get paid more because you perform outstandingly, like you're the first in your team. But they do get penalized if their candidates keep on quitting early or disobey authority. And what kind of candidates quit early and disobey authority? Usually the ones that are the smartest or the most qualified in terms of experience, intelligence. So if they don't want to hire the best candidates out there, who do they want to hire? People with the least amount of risks. And that's what interview questions are, to measure your risk. Why did you leave your company? Measures your risk of leaving again. What is your biggest weakness? See how bad you can screw up. It's really all psychology.
Yes, I do agree with this young lady that this is psychological when you go into these job interviews, in the fact that they are looking for the least risky as opposed to the most qualified. This could be particularly true, especially if you're looking for like entry-level positions, right? And so what I mean is, if you're a person going for an entry-level job and you got all these college degrees, all these certifications, and past and prior experience. Now, normally you shouldn't be looking for an entry-level job. You should be looking for at least a mid-level or senior level type of position. But, things happen where you may have to start over from scratch and, kind of do what you got to do. The reality is, when you go for these jobs, oftentimes they want a person that, I'm not going to say they want quote unquote dumb people. They want people that need the job, I guess you can say. They actually need the job and they don't really have a lot of options, which means there's a higher chance that they are going to stay at this company longer and hopefully put in the necessary work to meet the requirements of the job. If you have a person that's applying for a job and you can look at their resume and tell that they don't necessarily have to be applying for this position, a hiring manager can almost sense that this person might jump ship when the first chance for a better opportunity comes along. So what I'm saying is, it can often be tricky to go to a job interview and load your resume up with all these wonderful accomplishments, because obviously you want to seem like the best candidate. You do want to present yourself as the best candidate. But in relation to the position that you're going for, that could possibly backfire on you, because the hiring person looking at your resume, they have to wonder if this position that you're applying for, are you actually going to be around for the long term, or are you just trying to get this job just so you can get a job and have some income coming in until a better opportunity presents itself, and then you're going to chuck deuces and go somewhere else. So these are just some of the things you got to think about. Now, I don't want you guys going out there and presenting yourself as desperate and not showing off your skills and talents, but you have to be somewhat cautious when doing this. I'll give you an example. So when I got out the military, I had a whole bunch of experience, certifications. I got a bachelor's degree and I got 2 master's degrees. I got an MBA and I got a master's in IT. when I was initially looking for a job after I got out the military, I would purposely leave off the fact that I had 2 master degrees and only let them know I had a bachelor's degree. And then I would leave off some of my certifications and only let them know I had X amount of certifications, depending upon what type of job I was going for. Because there was at one point, I'm not going to say I was desperate, but after I got out the military, I had to go find another job. So I was kind of in this mentality of, let me just take the first thing that's going so I can get some money coming in so I don't fall behind on my bills and all this other stuff. But I couldn't go into this interview to let them know I had all this, that, and the third going on, because that may have disqualified me, or they may have viewed me as being overqualified for the job. These are just some things to think about. It's not to scare you. It's not to discourage you. It's just, you have to think about what you're putting on your resume for what job you're going for. Are you putting too much? Are you not putting enough? What are you putting on there? Because depending upon what position you're going for, these people may deem you overqualified and deem you as a quote unquote flight risk, meaning you get hired and then as soon as a better opportunity comes along, you're out the door. So just think about those things. So let's check out this clip where she says, what's the biggest challenge you had to overcome? Let's see what she's talking about over here.
If you've never experienced a really big challenge in your life and you have to answer the question, what is the biggest challenge you ever have to overcome? This is what you do. First, make sure you take a look at this video, which is part 1 about why you shouldn't focus on the word overcome. And now let's talk about the challenge part. Let me first give you an example. If you ran 5 kilometers and say that's the biggest challenge you've ever faced, well, that's a little bit too small. If you say I made the decision to leave the house 30 days in a row every single day, that is also too small. But if you say I made the decision to leave the house and run 5 kilometers every single day for a whole month, that is a good challenge. The reason is because the difficulty of the task multiplied by the difficulty of the decision that you continuously had to make made this a very difficult challenge. That was just an example, but take something that's true from your life and apply it, sprinkle it with a story of how you overcame it, and you're good to go.
So I'm ex-military. So every time I've been presented with that question, I always got a great story. I always tell about my experiences of being deployed overseas to Afghanistan, where I had to do telecommunications work, doing help desk stuff, helping to set up TCFs and helping to install fiber optic cables and line of sight equipment and satellite equipment, all this wonderful stuff. I had to do all of that under the constant threat of being shot and or blown up by a rocket. So every time I've been presented with that question, I always give that story of me literally having to do my job in a life and death situation. And every single time I give that story to a person who's never been in the military, their eyes get big, like they're sitting around watching an action movie, because I get into so much detail about it. So I personally think I knock that story out the park every single time. And I encourage you all to find a similar story that you can knock out of the park every single time. But hopefully your story doesn't involve the very real threat of you being shot and or blown up like my story involved. But if you do have a story where you have almost been shot and or blown up in some capacity doing your job or whatever it is that you're doing, find a way to merge that into your biggest challenge you've ever overcome. And that might actually help. So I guess what I'm saying is the more dramatic and more heart thumping, I guess the better. Nobody really wants a boring story of, one time we got this tasker and I had to set up 50 computers in 2 hours. It's like, okay. Now, if you got a tasker saying you had to set up 50 computers in 2 hours because a bunch of people were aiming guns at your head, then that might make for a better story. So just think about those things, ladies and gentlemen.
If an employer asks you how do you handle conflict within a team, make sure to define conflicts on your own terms and not follow what they say and use the word conflict. If you don't know what I mean, watch this video below to know the steps to answering this question. But since you guys asked, here's an example. Make sure to save it so you can find it later. Conflict often has a negative connotation, but it's really just differences in opinions. Especially in a team setting, it is not necessarily a negative thing as long as all the team members have the same goal. This happened to me in a group project where one of the team members saw flaws in my proposal and I saw flaws in his. Through our argument per se, we were actually able to find a completely new direction for our work which had none of our initial flaws. I believe this can only be done when teams recognize they have the same goal, which is why in these situations, I would first remind myself and help the team redirect their attention to our final purpose.
I think she gave a pretty good answer with that when it comes to conflict resolution. I think the key thing to remember when it comes to answering that question, how do you resolve conflict, is you have to tell the person that's interviewing you, what was the issue? What was the issue that you saw with the problem? And what was the issue that the other person or the team saw with the problem? How you all engaged the issue, and then hopefully how you all came to some type of conclusion that benefited the mission mission or the team or the goal. Not necessarily just how it benefited you, but how it benefited everybody moving forward. I think that's the key to answering that question.
If an employer asks you how do you function as a team member or how do you function within a team, know that this is not a good time for you to show that I am the one who takes initiative. I am innovative. What they're looking for is a team player. And what is a team player? But what they're measuring in this question is your ability to fit into the different holes and needs within a team. So that doesn't always mean you're the person who's taking initiative. It could mean that you're the person who's staying silent because there's lots of ideas going around. That also means when the whole room is silent that you take initiative there. A team player, by their definition, is someone who allows other people to be able to do their work better while not forgetting to do their own.
I like this Runa lady. She is giving some very intelligent responses to these questions. So team player, when people ask you that question, you got to remember it's not always about you. It's about the team and what contribution you gave to the team in order to successfully meet an objective. That's what it's about. I know when some people get asked that question during an interview, they'll try to make it all about them. Well, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. And that's fine. You can list all the things you've done, but you need to be able to wrap it up and package it in such a way that it tells the story of how your contribution actually aided towards the success of accomplishing the goal. And even if your contribution was just being the person in the back taking notes, meaning you weren't the one in the front giving the speeches and then taking the sword and saying charge, you were just the person in the back recording the minutes, be honest and upfront. I'm a very good note taker. I take extremely detailed notes. So while everybody's doing this and doing this, I'm keeping a written log or typing up a log of everything that's going on for notes and accounting purposes. So just think about these things, ladies and gentlemen. It's not necessarily about you always having to be the superstar. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is the video. Hopefully you guys got some useful information out of this so you guys know what you need to do so you can go out there and successfully pass these job interviews. Because you got to remember, it's not just about getting the certifications, although that is a very important part of it, depending upon what area in IT you're going into. And you all know that I try to push you all towards IT and or cybersecurity. And so certifications are very important. But you also have to understand, you have to go through and successfully pass these job interviews. So yes, you can get that resume all jazzy all day long, and I highly encourage you to do that, but you have to sell yourself as a relatable person that they want to hire. Now, you also have to convince these people that you are not a so-called flight risk, meaning you're just using them as a stepping stone until you find something better. You have to go in there and let these people know that you actually want to contribute to the success of that organization, and that by them hiring you will be the best decision for that company, and their money will be well invested into you. That's what you have to do. And it's a balancing act, because like I stated earlier, you don't want to go in there and give the impression that you're overqualified. You definitely don't want to give the impression that you're underqualified. It's a bit of a balancing act. And you only truly really learn these things by going through the motions of going through multiple job interviews. When I was out there hunting for a job after I got out the military, I probably went on like 20 job interviews. I probably got offered about 15 of those jobs, but I felt like I was kind of prepared. I had been practicing up until that point prior to me getting out of the military on how to answer questions and, dress up my resume pertaining to certain jobs I was applying for. So anyways, this was some good information that was presented in this article. Hopefully you got something useful out of it. Hopefully you'll take this knowledge and make it do what it do out in these streets, baby, so you can go out there and get you a job and get it on and popping in your life with the paychecks flowing in, because that's what this is all about at the end of the day, right? So with that being said, hit the like button, share button, drop a comment, but also subscribe to this channel. And with that, I'll holler at you on the next video. So peace.